The Honest Garage Podcast, where real shop owners tell real shop stories.
Today on the Honest Garage Podcast, we're talking with a shop owner whose connection to the automotive industry began long before he opened his doors. It started in a dealership, grew through a family that was already passionate about cars and performance, and eventually became a business built around technical knowledge, customer trust, and developing the next generation of automotive professionals. Our guest today is Todd Compton, owner of Compton's Automotive in Charlotte, North Carolina. Since opening in 2005, the independently owned shop has grown into a full-service repair facility, serving domestic and import cars, trucks, and SUVs. The team provides everything from routine maintenance and diagnostics to tires, alignments, engine repair, and more advanced electrical work. Todd's automotive background began in the dealership world, but the industry was already part of his family's story. His father developed racing fuel, giving Todd an early look at the mixture of science, performance, problem solving, and entrepreneurship that exists behind the cars themselves. That foundation helped shape both his technical interest and his eventual decision to build something of his own. Today, Compton's Automotive has been serving Charlotte for more than 20 years. The business has earned a strong reputation for thorough work, clear communication, fair treatment, and a customer experience designed to make complicated repairs easier to understand. The shop focuses on prompt service and transparent recommendations, helping drivers make informed decisions instead of simply being handed a repair bill. But Todd's also thinking beyond the vehicles currently in the bays. One of the most important themes from the prep call was his interest in recruiting young people into the automotive industry. Compton's Automotive has become involved with tools in schools, visiting local middle and high schools to show students that today's technician is not simply a mechanic. The job now requires advanced diagnostics, computer skills, electrical knowledge, critical thinking, and a commitment to continuous education. In this episode, we're going to dig into Todd's path from dealership to ownership, the influence his father had on his automotive journey, what has helped Compton's Automotive remain successful for more than 2 decades, and what shop owners can do to make this industry more attractive for the next generation. Todd, welcome to the Honest Garage Podcast, man. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here.
Good, man. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I try to kick these things off relatively easy and just kind of ask, because a lot of us in the industry, we're kind of car nerds anyway. What was the car that got you excited and really made you interested in the auto industry from the beginning?
Yeah, I don't really know if I had a particular car. At the time, my father had a 1970 Chevrolet C10, and he had some work done to it. And then I really liked that truck. But coming up through, I didn't really have the money to buy a car like that. When I was a kid, I was fixing go-karts. Then my first car was a 1982 Cutlass Supreme. And and I remember the Monte Carlo was another one that I really, probably the early mid-80s Monte Carlo was one of my favorites. But through my history of cars, I've never actually owned a old muscle car.
Oh, okay. I love the old muscle cars, but I'm really partial to the C10s. That's what my dad and I rebuilt together. When I was probably 11 or 12 years old, we started that rebuild, and there's something about those old C10s that there's a lot of nostalgia there. They're kind of a cool truck. They're easy to work on. It was a really good introduction for me to get my hands on stuff.
Yeah, actually, one of the very first times I worked on a truck, or actually a vehicle, I was probably 7, 8 years old, and my dad was doing the front brakes on the C10. And I remember he had it jacked up. It was on jack stands. And so he asked me to take the front brakes off of the passenger side. So I did. And he told me what I needed to do to put the new pads on. And got that done. And while I was doing this, he was inside the house. He was not looking over my shoulder. So I told him it was done. And I for some reason or another, he told me something. And I don't remember, because that was a long time ago. And I went out back there and I took the brake pads off again. Told him it was done. Well, he come out, he says, "No, you need to do the other side." And so I'd taken apart the side that he initially. So anyway, we got that fixed. And then a couple years later, I remember walking on the back deck, and he had the carburetor off of it. He was replacing the jets in it and doing some stuff like that in it. And he asked me to put it on, go ahead and put the carburetor on the truck. And so I go out there, and I don't even think I took it off. I don't remember taking it off, but I remember I'm going there trying to put it on and put the bolts in, and he comes walking out there. He says, "That looks pretty good, but you got it on backwards." So that's my earliest recollection of working on any car or truck.
Well, tell me about how you got from putting on the carburetor backwards to now owning your own shop. And I know you got started with the dealership world, and we talked a little bit about your dad's race fuel. Walk me through kind of start to finish, the high level of how we got here.
Sure. So when I was a kid, I would go around to race shops with my dad. And it always fascinated me seeing the race cars. And I didn't really know what he did. Being that young, you just don't know what. I just remember going. I remember going to Darwall years ago. And it was when it was a 88 Gatorade car. And I remember them letting me climb in the window and sit in the seat in that thing. All this while my dad was conducting some sort of business there. And then the family was involved in go-karts. I didn't race much. I was a lot younger than my brother. My brother raced a lot more than I did. He's 7 years older than I am. But then around 1985, my father passed away. And these memories that I had of being with my dad around cars and the race cars and go-karts, stuff like that, I tried to grab a hold of that by basically getting in. I was in junior high. I would start messing around with go-karts more, and I didn't know what I was doing. And then when I went into high school, I figured what I really wanted to do was work for a race team. And I figured the best way to me to get there is to go through the automotive program at the high school. And so I went through Automotive 1, 2, and 3. Automotive 3 was actually we went to the community college and did some classes there. And so then from that point, I knew that my education couldn't stop there. I wanted to go to Nashville Auto Diesel College. But before I went to the college, I did enlist into the Army National Guard. And right around the same time, the Iraq War was going on. And so I didn't end up going, but got out of training, AIT, then came back. Then I went to go visit some race shops. I went to college and came back to Charlotte. And so some of the family friends knew my father, and they blackballed me. I think it's like, you don't really want to be in this business. You don't
do that to yourself.
Yeah, basically. So from that point, there's one thing I'm missing. I've left out. It was while I was in high school. I worked for a shop here in Charlotte, and it's called Summerfield's. I was 16, and they gave me an opportunity because I'd gone through some of the community college, and they were part of recruiting students from the college. And I worked there, and this guy's got a 16-bay shop, and I was driving at the time I had a 1983 Ford Ranger. I'd wrecked the Buick or the Oldsmobile, and they hired me, and I go pull in the parking lot, and one of the technicians comes out, and he's like, "I can help you with your toolbox." And I was like, "No, I got it." So I reached in the bed of the truck, and I pull out this 3-drawer Craftsman toolbox. That's all I had. I think I did have a half-inch air impact, and maybe a couple, but not much fit in that toolbox. There was no training. I got no training. The first job they gave me was I can't remember what year model it was. It had to be somewhere in the 80s, but it was a Ford Econoline van, and it had to do a power string pump. And I worked on it. So anyway, I think I was there I may have been there for 6 months. And the owner, he pulled me aside, and he's like, "I just don't believe you're cut out for this. So we're probably need to find a different profession." And so that's, again, this when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So from that point, that's when I finished up the college courses and then went into the Army, and I became a heavy wheel mechanic. And then came out, went to Tennessee, went to Nashville Auto Diesel College, and went to that program. Then while I was out there, I ended up working for a dealership out there, and it was kind of hard to be on. And my job was the general service guy along with trim. So I would, between doing oil changes, I would be pulling door panels off brand new cars. And I had a 5-gallon bucket with soap in it and soap and water. And so I would try to get cleaned up and then go work on some, on some of these trim jobs. I remember working on a 92 Corvette, and I had to pull the door panel off. I had the door panel pulled off, and the dispatch called me, and they had a oil change for me to do, waiting oil change. So I went and grabbed it. It was a van. It was a G van, Mark III conversion van. I'll never forget it. And so I pulled the van in, and I started raising it up. It fell off the lift. And the service manager, he comes back there, and he's like, grab one of these other guys, and because you can complete the job. You're going to finish the job. It tore up the running boards, and it I think smashed the passenger side door and a little bit in the mirror and stuff. And he said, but you're going to finish it. And so I had one of the guys come over, and we reset the lift and raised it up and did the oil change on it, got all that done. Of course, I was still probably shaking.
Yeah, I imagine.
And then as I go to pull the van out, I somehow turned it too tight, and the door panel that I had taken off the vet on the bay right beside me, it became a speed bump. So I ran over this Corvette door panel. I mean,
it was a bad day, man.
It's a bad day. And they didn't fire me. They did not fire me. And then shortly after that, one of the guys that did most of the used cars, he came back. He had been out on medical leave, and he came back, and he had a stroke. And so he couldn't really perform a lot of the work, but it was still on his mind. And so they put me with him, and he taught me a lot. And so I started doing used cars, and I started doing a little bit of everything. And so then from that point, I decided I wanted to move out to Colorado, but I moved back to Charlotte for a little while. I worked for Toyota for a few months, and then moved out to Colorado and got a job at MedVed Chevrolet in the Motorplex. And I was still green, and they gave me one. So actually, when I went out there, I went to multiple different dealerships. There was several dealerships. I think Stapleton Chevrolet or GM or something like that. I can't remember. There was several of them out there, but the service manager at MedVed, it was a Friday, and he hired me on, and they were open. They had two shifts, so they were open on weekends and open late at night. So I got my toolbox over there on a Saturday, and I show up Monday morning. The service manager's not there. And so I'm kind of walking around, and I'm trying to figure out who to talk to. And finally, the service director asked me who I was. And I said, I'm Todd. I was hired to start. And he goes, go put your toolbox in that bay over there. And it was one bay with no lift. And
Just a flat
stall. And so I was green. I was still green. I was in a bay with a flat stall. And the guy that worked next to me, he did a lot of drivability, but I was a new kid on the block. Everybody kind of they didn't like talking to me. They gave me a hard time. And then the dispatch, with knowing that I didn't have a lift, I was limited to what he could give me. So he gave me a bunch of electrical work. Yeah. And then other than that, I'd work with jack stands and jacks. And the guy beside me around this time, in the mid-90s, a lot of the GM cars were, I won't say a lot, but it was popular that they were getting stolen. Yeah, you get the columns on those things.
Right. They were used to being on stands.
Yeah, and the way they were stolen, the way column was broken. And so the guy beside me that did drivability, he did a lot of the column work. And I was always fascinated by it. I always wanted to learn how to do it. And when he got overloaded, the dispatch would give me one. And I started learning how to do it. And then there was a particular time where that tech went on vacation. He was gone for a week, I think. It might have been a little bit longer. So the dispatch gave me all the theft jobs. I was loving it. I had my cart set up. I started running the columns really well. Anyway, when the tech came back and found out what I was doing, it was not a good environment.
It was competitive. You felt like you were moving in on his space, huh?
Oh, yeah. It was bad. The relationship that we had wasn't the best to begin with. After that, it was vicious. And there were some other things that happened to that dealer that was just, I think, unethical. And so I left. And then I went to Mike Shaw Chevrolet. and Buick, and they're Colorado. And those guys, they treated me very well. They knew that so I went from a flat rate technician, green, and they put me as a helper or an assistant to their drivability tech. And that is exactly where I wanted to be at. They put me through a lot of the GM training, and the mentor that I had there, he taught me a lot. Of course, it got to the point where he would just sit off in his chair and smoke cigarettes while I was doing all the stuff. But I still got the education and went through the classes, and then pretty much graduated until they felt that I could go back. I was doing drivability my own. So then, that was the second dealer. Actually, that was the fourth dealer that I was in within a couple of different states.
So that was really laying the foundation for your transition to ownership when you came back home, huh?
Yeah, when I came back home, I worked for a Pontiac dealer, but we were doing used cars. That's all I did. And so I worked with the used car manager and the service manager. And then it got to where they were really pushing their used car market at the time. And they would buy 30 cars twice a week. And it was my job to get them in and get them checked over, get them out on the lot. And so they hired another guy to help me. Not necessarily, I wasn't their boss, but it was but they helped create a team of used car team. So we had 4 of us. Now, I guess I was at the time maybe team lead because I'd been there and understood how everything needed to work. And so I did that for a while. But when I came back to Charlotte, I put in a couple applications in a couple of different dealerships. My passion was really drivability. I really wasn't doing that at doing all the used cars. And not only that, there was some shady stuff going between the used car manager and the service manager. And I was put in between the two. And you'd have the used car manager want to go cheap as possible. You'd want to have the service manager go as high as possible. And I got stuck in the center. Yeah. And so I went to my mom's house one day for lunch because the dealership wasn't that far from my mom's house. And I just had to be sitting there and the phone rang. She answered the phone, and it was a service manager from the Chevrolet dealer, one of the Chevrolet dealers I had applied to almost a year prior. Wanted to know if I wanted to come and talk to him. I scheduled an appointment with them, went there for the interview, and what they were looking for was a drivability tech. Their drivability tech had left to go start his own shop, and so they were wanting to hire a replacement. It's like, heck yeah. So that was Diamond Chevrolet. And so I started there, and they believed in training. I went all the VCR tapes and the GM stuff and all the classes they could send me to. I took everything they could possibly give me. And so I was there for 9 years and went through the GM Master Certification Program process. I did not become world-class certified. I think I got in 5 of them, and you needed 8. But by the time I decided to leave, they weren't going to send me to another one. And so that's my dealership experience. There's a lot more in between all that, but we don't have enough time for that.
Talk to me specifically about that time when you decided you were ready to jump ship, start your own shop. And then in particular, I know you've been in business for over 2 decades at this point in your own shop, and you've seen a lot of changes in the industry. And I'm curious, what's been the most difficult season of ownership for you, and what did you change because of that?
Your first question there is what prompted me. I got bored. Yeah, I got bored. Things were pattern failure. And so me and a buddy of mine, we started working on anything we could get in a small storage unit. And I did that for almost 5 years. And then I decided just to, I think it's time for me to go out on my own and try this. And so that's what prompted me to start my own business. And then the hardest year, there's been several of them. In 2005, I think it was Hurricane Katrina, I believe it was, that hit Louisiana around August or September or something like that. It was 2005. And so when it hit, it flooded all the oil pipe or the oil pumps. And so which fed the East Coast or east part of the states. And so I was only a couple months in business, and there was no fuel. So it's just like, I was like, yeah, this is a little tough. But fortunately, I didn't really have high expenses. I didn't owe anybody anything except for the mortgage company, and which that became a little tough. But that didn't last that long. And then probably the next biggest one that hit hard was the mortgage crisis around late 2008, 2009. That one, I thought was going to put me out of business. And I got really creative on ways to pay the staff and just trying to hold on to anything that I could. Because a lot of our business was from the areas around us, which had a lot of financial companies around here. And so it hit them hard. And when you hear about whole floors of a building getting laid off, it's trickled down. It trickled down to us, and we just didn't have it. That was tough. So fortunately, go ahead.
I was going to say, what is it about dealing with something like that? Like, what do you learn? What do you take away from something like that as a business owner? And how's that still impacting the way you prepare and plan for things today?
Financially, trying to prepare to have something put back and to not let expense creep come in, which is easy to do. The ebbs and flows of that has happened to me over the years, in fact, from that, but it's trying to protect yourself from that happening again. Also, you can try to do the best you can. You still may not work. At least you can try to weather the storm somewhat, if you can. So that's, which I didn't quite, I kind of learned a little bit from that, and and some I didn't. After the first couple of years, after that happened and we got out of it, it's like, okay, we made it through. All right, so let's just continue on, and then it becomes out of sight, out of mind. Then all of a sudden, COVID hit. I was a little more prepared through COVID than I was at the banking crisis. Yeah. But we made it through all of it.
I know now you guys put a lot of emphasis on transparent pricing and inspections and like on the customer service side of things. How do you create that level of trust with your customers while still making sure that the shop's properly recommending and selling the work that the vehicle genuinely needs without going too far in the upsell process?
Fortunately, in today's world, we have some great technology. I use Shop-Ware along with AutoOps and some other things. And it's been trial and error trying to get the way I want it to. Back before we had all this, I would talk to customers about, hey, you got to come down and see this, or I want to take pictures of it. And so, of course, the customers don't even know what they're looking at in most cases. So with that being said, we find things that are broken or bad. Of course, we do the 300% rule. We inspect all the vehicles. We estimate everything out and present everything. And so with that, we present it with pictures, documentation, and information. That way the customer can be informed of what they're seeing. And so we also, and we prioritize it. We prioritize everything. And so a customer may see a lot of things going with their vehicle, but that doesn't mean they got to get everything fixed at one time. And so we work with the customer on, say, let's do 1, 2, and 3, and let's hold off on these. But these are things that don't need attention right now, but will need, and now we have them documented. So next time we bring it in for a service, we can at least keep an eye on it. But they need to know, so they're not kind of shocked with a humongous repair bill right at one time. So we do the best we can to try to prioritize and educate and show the customer, let them explain actually what's kind of going on with the vehicle.
Yeah. Well, I know you guys, it's obvious from the reviews, it's obvious from your prep call and the reputation that you guys have built, but you're doing a lot of things right. I'm curious, for people who don't know you or haven't had the time that I had on the prep call to get to know you a little bit better, when you look at Compton's Automotive today, what do you think is working best for you? What's something that you think other shops could take and learn from?
Gosh, I'm not sure. I don't really know what other shops are doing or what struggles they're having. If they're having a struggle at the front counter, that could be the communication process. Or if they're struggling with the front and the back, that could be a culture problem. There's all these things kind of tied together. It's kind of really, and I hate to be so vague on your answer to your question on that, but there's a lot of things that kind of go into it.
What was the thing that was the biggest unlock for you in your business? What was the thing that you learned that helped move you forward and kind of take that next big step as you evolved?
There's really two things: communicating with the staff and the customers, and then also learning the financial side of the business.
Yeah.
Those are probably the two biggest things. Is when I started looking at our reviews, almost all of we have bad reviews, and we got a lot of good ones. And so when I look at our bad reviews, almost all the time it's got to do with communication. And so I knew that had to be in the forefront, is to communicate better. And I was one of those guys where it's 3:30 in the afternoon, the car's not done yet, and all of a sudden your stress level's going sky high, and you're afraid to make that call. And sometimes I procrastinate. And so
if you know it's not going to be a good call, you just keep putting it off and making it worse.
You keep putting it off, making it worse. But then what happens is that customer then calls you, and now you don't have a choice. I mean, you can let it go, but you gotta face it. So what I found is that if you make that call before they call you, chances are it might go a little south, but it's going to go a whole lot better than if they're calling, because now you can set them up. If your car's not going to be done, now you can set a plan up for them to have some sort of transportation or something to, or maybe they're waiting, maybe their coworkers are getting ready to leave to go home. And now it's almost 4 o'clock. Everybody's gone. They're sitting in the office going, okay, how am I going to get home? You call them early enough. Now they're like, okay, I can ask my friend or ask one of my coworkers to just give me a ride home. Yeah, and we'll see you Monday. It takes the stress off. So that's communication is one thing. And then from the front and the back.
That's awesome, man. I know when we talked on the prep call, one of the things you said you were most passionate about, and I loved it, was about getting younger people interested in automotive careers. And I know you're doing something with tools in schools, and you're helping students see kind of a modern technician as a diagnostician instead of a parts hanger. What is it that young people misunderstand about this industry and this career? And what do we need to do as an industry to change that perception?
From all the schools that I've gone into, the middle schools and high schools, the biggest thing is missing is the awareness that this is even an occupation. When you go into a school and you have 100 students sitting in front of you, and you ask them to raise their hand if they know what trades are, and maybe out of 100, maybe 2 or 3 of them might raise their hand. There's just absolutely no awareness. And that's, of course, when I was in middle school, I grew up around the automotive side. But in high school, we had the trade. We had skills and trades. Yes, carpentry, masonry, auto, and I'm sure there's a few more in there. But they don't have those. And so the students are not aware of it. They have no idea. And so when we go to the schools, it's not just me. We do have electricians, carpenters, even guys that do solar panels, electricians, plumbers, and they allow the students to come up and get their hands on some of the tools and understand just planting a little bit of a seed to understand that, there's more stuff out here than going and trying to become the next NBA star or NFL pro star or becoming a doctor or a lawyer. There's more out there because those people are going to need us. And that's what the tools in schools is all about. It's just getting in front of them, letting them know that, hey, there's other stuff out here.
That's awesome. And I think it's such an important program to have around now that, like you said, some of these classes that used to be core education don't even exist in the education system any longer. Right. It's amazing how fast that drops out of people's awareness. And it's just something that it has to be addressed, because that's where this technician shortage everybody's talking about really stems from, is that problem went largely ignored for 10 or 20 years.
Some of it. So I'm also involved in the ASTA, so Automotive Service Tire Alliance. Yeah. And we've gone to several colleges around several counties around the area. And I will say, when we go into those, the seats are full. There are students that want to get these industries. Now, there's an attrition rate as they go through school, but for the most part, when class starts, most seats are full. Where I see the problem at is once they come out of school and actually go to work for somebody, and the treatment or the lack of guidance, the lack of a plan, that's where you start really seeing them drop off and they decide to go somewhere else and do something different.
Yeah, nobody wants to show up and do a hard physical labor job where the job beats you up and then you get beat up by your coworkers, by your boss, by the industry just because
Mhm.
you don't have the right tools or because you don't know everything as a new guy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a tough environment in some places. I do think that we're starting to see that get a little bit better, which I'm grateful for.
Me too.
Tell me, for anybody out there, I know our normal audience tends to be other shop owners, but what's the best place for somebody that's young that does want to get into the trades and, in particular, the automotive industry? What's the best way, in your opinion, for them to kind of connect with the industry and get started?
At least what I've seen around here in North Carolina is that North Carolina does have an apprenticeship program. The a lot of several of the colleges have great automotive programs, and the which then those programs will, like certain shops, you can register to a North Carolina apprenticeship program and become a sponsored shop. And
Hmm.
so when these students go through these classes in schools, you then take them in as an apprentice. And now there's certain criteria that you go through, but it works really well because the students learning the criteria at the same time they're also putting things in, also using their hands and going and using what they're learning.
Yeah, they're applying what they're learning.
Yes, so that really is a great, to me that's one of the best things to do. In fact, I just got an email. I saw an email come across earlier this week from ASE, and they were talking about that the Department of Labor has granted them, I think it was like $28 million on top of some other funds that are going to ASE. And part of the program is that shops that are, I don't know all the details yet, but shops that are maybe approved to be on this program can, if they bring an apprentice in, that those funds will help pay for that apprentice. It's not a lot, but it helps. And so I know there's other organizations out there trying to do something to get the businesses to bring these people in.
Yeah, I think it's awesome and definitely needed in the industry. So shifting gears a little bit here, we ask everybody on the show kind of the same question here towards the end. We're really big on the word honest, obviously. We're the Honest Garage podcast. Listeners know, I own Honest Mechanic Marketing. It's a big deal for us. But when you hear that phrase, honest garage, honest mechanic, honest shop, what does that mean for you? What does that mean in the way that you run your shop?
So I may look at it completely different. The word honest has been thrown around so loosely over the years.
Yeah.
What meaning does it have? And I don't mean that as bad. I don't mean that. I'm not knocking on you or anything like that.
That's all right.
Anything like that. It's I think it's a word that when, how do I believe you? How do I know you're honest?
Yeah.
Just because you say it, And so I don't use in any of my marketing. I don't believe I ever use that word. Not that I don't think that we are honest. It's that I feel like that word's so overplayed, and I don't use it.
We're gonna give a shout out to one of our earlier guests, Daryl. You are the second person on the show that has ever actually come out and said the thing, which is that word's overplayed, or if you have to say it, are you really? And from our perspective, we use that because if we say we're honest, usually people want to look and find out where you're not. And that's what we kind of like that. Go ahead, we're inviting you. Look at us under the microscope and see. We're going to be transparent. We're going to open up. We're not going to hide anything. And that's really kind of the premise of this show, which is sharing these stories and stuff like this. And I think that it's really awesome that we get to tell honest stories from real shop owners doing the thing day in and day out. Kind of with that in mind, I want to thank you for opening up and sharing those stories and sharing your background and taking the time to be with us on the show. It's a huge appreciation for that.
Well, again, thank you for having me here.
Yeah, man. Before we let you go, though, one of the things that's been the best, like I was telling you before the show about getting to do this show, is the community we're building around it. Mm-hmm. What's the best way for people to kind of stay up to date with what you're doing in the shop or with you personally if they want to dig deeper on anything we talked about today?
Probably our biggest thing is our TikTok.
Yeah.
It's Compton's Automotive on TikTok. And then we're also on Instagram, Compton's Automotive, and Facebook. We share a lot of different things on that, some community events, some team building events, some problems that we see in the shop. So we try to mix it all up a little bit.
That's awesome, man. And for listeners out there, go ahead and check it out and reach out to Todd and Compton's Automotive. They're doing some really good stuff, especially for the young people in the industry and getting people involved. And if you got value at all from anything Todd said, I would just encourage you to connect with him. If you get value from the show, please share, comment, engage with the show. It helps other shop owners find us, helps them get an opportunity to come and have, one of these conversations with us and share their story, and gives us the ability to help them promote their shop a little bit. Obviously, if you need any marketing advice or anything like that, you can reach out to us at Honest Mechanic Marketing.
Sure.
It wouldn't be a show if we didn't let you know that we do that also.
Absolutely.
But really, just thanks again, Todd, for taking the time to be on the show today. I appreciate you.
No problem, David. Thank you.
Yeah. And everybody else out there, thank you for listening. And as always, keep it honest in the garage.
16, started washing cars. I washed cars, and then from there I worked my way. I was making $7. I think what's the Kansas minimum wage? It's $7.25. I was making $7.25. I worked my way up from there. Got up. I remember the day I got it raised to $10 an hour, and I was like, man, double digits. I made it. I'm making big bucks now. And anyway, so I worked my way up from washing cars, and then I changed oil, and then one day I used to buy cars and fix them on the side because I've always turned wrenches with my dad.
No, I want to do it this way. And really what happens in most relationships when you have three alphas is what we have. What happens in those relationships is somebody finally says, you know what, fine, try it your way. Let's see if it works. And then it either does or doesn't. And if it works, you are vindicated. And if it doesn't, then I was vindicated, right?